And we've got some things to figure out. Let's see if I can find a... All right, ladies and gentlemen. An error occurred, still got no Insta. Who do we have in the his house? Somebody's on Twitch. Who's on Twitch? Wait a minute. Maybe I need to reset to chat. Cobalt. See, Cobalt, you helped me out so much, bud. Now I got to restart chat because there's all kinds of good. We had a scramble to get ready today. Sometimes the poop comes out of the baby smooth and buttery, and sometimes it's a chunky mess. And this was a chunky mess right there. Cobalt's announced. Dawn Shipley, hello, how are you? Christine M. Oh my gosh, I love seeing all of your faces. Well, your names, but I think of your faces. And I'm also terrible with names. So, I'm terrible with names, but good with faces. So I will Daryl Harris, what's up? Scott Aitken, yo, yo, yo. Martin Evans. Martin, I got a couple of, I'm a little bit behind on your messages from Messenger. So I got to get up on that. Sean says, I don't think it's ever a good option when poop is in your working surfaces. Sean, listen, I don't know how to tell you this. That's a rookie take. That's an amateur take. When you've been into business as long as I have, sometimes a little shit's going to fall where it's not supposed to fall. Sometimes. And, this is one of those times. But, we got to figure it out. Everything's all right. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's going to go good. Edward Rocco in the house. Donna Millar in the house. Nell Zone McClintock. Richard Bennett. There, it's hard to find an OJ that is more of an older OJ than a more long-time OJ than Nell Zone McClintock. Pam Weber, how are you doing? Oh, my goodness. Richard Bennett. Now, of course, Richard Bennett in the Crip series, there's a character called John Bennett. And John Bennett, I don't know if John Bennett is any longer in this world, was a diehard redheaded Texan, I think was his name on the old site. Was a diehard junkie. And then just at one point, we just lost track of him. He just vanished. But every time I see the name Bennett, because I have a preponderance to spell it with one T, it's two T's. And I think of you. I do think of you, sir. Recluse Mage, what's up, buddy? Cobalt, there's an enormous amount of poop in sausage. Let's be honest. The sausage industry, I don't know if you guys have ever read the novel The Octopus, but it specifies how the actual sausage gets made. Not the metaphorical sausage, the real sausage. If you read that book, you might not want to read sausage again. So if you like sausage, don't read it. I have never read it. I got the Cliff's Notes on it. But because I like sausage too much. Some things I just don't want to know. I don't want to know all the bad stuff all the time. Sometimes I want to live in my fantasy world where everything is delicious and chicken and apple sausagey and bacony. And I just don't want to know how shit actually gets made. I just want to eat stuff and be happy. Sue me if that is a problem. There's nothing I can do about it. Ian Sequel says, don't investigate the meat packing industry, period. Don't, period. Excellent call. The Jungle. Gosh darn it. Sean Dyer. You're a smart motherfucker, Sean. It's the Jungle, not the octopus, I think. That is, you know what? I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I will completely admit I have lost the thread. What I'm saying is, let's just go with Ian's suggestion. Don't look up any details on the meat industry if you like meat products. The last thing I will say about this topic, because I know quite a bit about this, or at least I did many years ago when I was in high school, is all the bad things you hear about McDonald's meat, it's all a bunch of bunk. McDonald's, at least when I worked there, ran an extraordinarily tight ship. They were obsessed with meat quality, meat freshness. They did not play any games with that crap whatsoever. So every time I hear one of these urban legends about, everything from worms to kangaroo meat to rotted cows, I assure you, dogs, that stuff is not happening because there are few chains in the world that are more closely watched than McDonald's, which I believe is still the largest restaurant chain in the world. which means in history. Red Jacket Man. Infected made me afraid of spaghetti. You goddamn right. That is correct. Who else is Rob Otto is in the house. Says The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. Rob Otto is a man who knows things. He knows a lot of things about many things, especially things that involve cows, because his favorite word is moo. Michael Moore found out sausage casing was intestine. It's not like that anymore. Sausage casing is not intestine any longer unless you buy from like little shops and whatnot or from a farm. They still actually do that now. It's some sort of synthetic-y skin thing. It's a thing that you don't want to know what it is, that you would rather it was actually intestine. That's how bad this shit gets. Let's go to main. We are closing in. Chat timer. Chat timer plus. I forgot to say, if you are watching, it doesn't matter anymore. I was going to say, fast forward to the zeros, but if people don't know that by now, there's not much I can do to help them. Rob and I think we've got a banger of an episode for you today. It is not a fisticuffs type episode. It is much more cerebral and erudite, as people often say that Rob and I are. They're often like, Rob, Scott, you are literally the most cerebral and or erudite people we have ever met in our entire lives. And Rob and I, you know what we say? We say, thank you. You are correct. Let's get into it. That's right. Rubbing my freshly shorn head. I shaved my head for you guys like literally like half an hour ago. That's how much I think of you people. Okay, hold on. A couple little things here. Let's get squared away. Let's start that big, beautiful bean footage. Replace. Check. And we are getting audio, so now I can hide this. Your scattered FTO is going to deliver the best performance he can at this particular time. Let's effing go. Previously on Slay. Lincoln finished collecting the bounty on the Schemgola and said he had to go see Callista. But was he telling the truth? He's been gone more and more from the old stone church. Where is the man in gray spending his time? Billy knows the powerful mage Vestinian wants him dead, but he doesn't know why. And when Vestinian comes for Billy, will Billy have the minerals to defend himself? Will Billy do what it takes to stay alive? Find out next on Slay, episode 79. He did not like the looks of the new guy. Those fucking Kandiki. Couldn't trust that race. Bat faces, pointy ears, and that nose. Lincoln, be nice. Lincoln glanced left to the hulking troglodyte sitting on a folding chair. I didn't utter a peep, Lincoln said. The trog, Pluka, sighed. No, but you are staring. And when you stare, you stress everybody out. Around the circle, heads nodded. And what heads they were. Not so long ago, Lincoln might have rousted them a bit, just to see if they were up to no good. Except for Muffy, maybe. She looked like a normal high school girl, varsity jacket and all. And maybe Doobie. Lincoln wasn't the kind of guy who hit dogs, including the 200-pound semi-anthropomorphic talking variety. Not unless they started something first. Roo-rare, Lincoln, Doobie said. Raw-ra-rhyme. Lincoln sneered at the huge Great Dane. I do not stare all the time, you big butt-sniffing fuck. Maybe it was time to reconsider that no violence against dogs thing after all. Muffy slouched in her chair. Her head lolled back, blonde hair dangling behind her almost to the floor. The varsity jacket was a few sizes too big for her. Probably belonged to some beer-chugging sports bro who peaked in high school. She sniffed. Her nose was running. Oxy addict. She was using again and everybody knew it. "Oh my God, Dobby. Oh my God, Doobie," she said. "Can't you, enunciate? You know, like a normal talking dog?" The huge Great Dane snorted. "Rut-roo, Rich." No argument there. Muffy was kind of a bitch. "All right, that's enough," Pluka said. "Muffy, Doobie, how many times do I have to warn you about talking out of turn? Keep it up, and I got to boot you from the group." Head still hanging backward, Muffy let out an overly dramatic sigh. "Rory, Ruka," Doobie said. The dog and Muffy were self-styled monster hunters. Not Bastion material by any measure. Doobie worked with 4 human hunters who... Doobie worked with 4 human hunters who pursued the low-pay, low-risk stuff like ghosts and haunted houses and whatnot. Muffy claimed she specialized in vamps, but she really specialized in drama. So much drama with that one. "Thank you, Doobie," Pluka said. "Apology accepted. Now, Lincoln, can you please stop staring at our new member?" Lincoln let out a cheek-puffing exhale. He didn't mean to stare, but with this bunch, sometimes he couldn't help it. In addition to Muffy, Doobie, Pluka, and the new guy, the regular group consisted of Faceless, Cray Cray Bray, and Skulger. What a bunch. After 15 or so meetings, after getting to know these people, if you could call them people, empathizing with their struggles against various substances, it was still hard for Lincoln to let go of the fact that, save for Muffy and Doobie, they were all monsters. He had trained his whole life to whoop monster ass, and yet here he was, at 2 a.m., in the back room of the old Southside YMCA, sitting with 5 of them in a goddamn addiction support group. They were now his peers. Sometimes life sucked. Lincoln knew it wasn't fair to prejudge the new guy, even if his nose did look like a diseased vagina. "Yeah, whatever," Lincoln said. "I'll stop staring." Pluka clapped his meaty green hands on his meaty green knees. "Good." He faced the new guy. "Do you have something to say?" The Kandiki's big bat ears quivered. Usually, that race's black eyes gleamed with malevolence. They were a shifty lot. In this one's eyes, though, Lincoln had to admit he saw sadness. Perhaps even despair. "I don't trust Rixators," the Kandiki said. "Had my face punched in for no good reason more times than I could count." "Then maybe don't have such a punchable face," Lincoln said, and immediately regretted saying it. "He is a former Rixator," Pluka said. "A former Rixator who will apologize for insulting you." For fuck's sake. Lincoln already felt bad inside for saying it. Now we had to apologize? Out loud? "Sorry," he said. "I shouldn't have insulted you. I'm in a bad mood today." Muffy sighed. "Like, when aren't you in a bad mood?" Lincoln's mind searched for a snappy comeback, but found none. Muffy wasn't wrong. Every day, it seemed, he woke up on the wrong side of the bed. "Apology accepted," the Kandiki said. He ruffled his leathery black wings, then folded them in again. "Hello, everyone. My name is Dakota, and I am a gobber's addict." Faceless sat up straighter. Great. Another gobhead in the bunch. "Hi, Dakota," Lincoln said, along with the rest of the group. "Welcome to Goda," Pluka said. "Attending group is the first step. I'll ask you to share your story in a moment. First, though, I want you to see what can happen. With dedication, discipline, and the support of this group, you can achieve what another member has achieved." Pluka stood. He stepped toward Lincoln. Lincoln fought the instinctive urge to reach into his cloak for Bastard Maker. Pluka wasn't going to attack. The 6'4" overweight troglodyte stood before Lincoln. The crocodilian mouth curled into what might pass for a smile among his species. "Congratulations, Lincoln." Pluka held out his green-scaled hand. Pinched between the black claws of thumb and forefinger was a small blue coin. "You've made it 6 months." Lincoln heard applause, but the noise seemed to come from a distance. He stared at the coin. 6 months? He had been coming to these meetings for 6 months? He reached out and took the coin. Pluka lumbered back to his spot and sat. The metal chair groaned under his weight. "Lincoln followed the guidelines and has benefited accordingly." The trog held up one long, fat claw. "Guideline 1. Avoid the poison that holds power over you. You stayed clean, Lincoln?" Lincoln nodded. "Yep, sure have." He'd mostly stayed clean anyway. A few drinks here and there. Things were stressful, right? He didn't count painkillers, though. When you hunt monsters for a living, sometimes you take damage. A few Percocets every now and then didn't matter. What did matter was he'd cut way back on booze and weed. That wasn't what he told Pluka and the group, but, whatever. They didn't need to know all of his business, now did they? Gobbers, though, Lincoln had totally cut those out, much to the annoyance of Magda. Pluka held up a second claw. "Suggestion 2. No new romantic relationships for the first year, because they can wind up being a new addiction to replace your old one. No new relationships. Right, Lincoln?" "Absolutely not," Lincoln said. "I am not dating anyone." Which technically was true, because dating and crazy monkey sex were not necessarily the same thing. Pluka held up a third claw. "And make amends to those you hurt while the poison held you prisoner. Lincoln has told me he has made many amends. Isn't that right, Lincoln?" Lincoln nodded. "Yep, I'm a regular apology machine, big guy." Okay, all right. That one was a total lie. Before assaulting Teddy Two Fingers' lair, Lincoln had downed several shots of Nini. Powerful stuff. Maybe he hadn't been schnockered, but he had been buzzed, which slowed his reactions. As a result, his sister Sophia had almost died. Had he admitted his fault to Sophia? Nope. Had he apologized to Maylene for starting fights at her bar? Nuh-uh. Had he apologized to Billy and Magda for getting so plastered at Maylene's bar that Billy and Dragon had to sneak out of the Old Stone Church to save Lincoln's drunken ass from that fuckface Beverly and his adjurator partner Rochelle Collar? Lincoln hadn't even mumbled a random drive-by, "my bad," out of nowhere for that one. It wasn't that Lincoln wouldn't make amends. He just hadn't found the time to do so. The coin, though. 6 months. He had had 6 months to find the time. "Congratulations, Lincoln," Pluka said. 6 months is an accomplishment. Well done." More polite applause. Lincoln looked at his therapy mates. A line of drool dripped from Doobie's dangling tongue. The dog was clearly jonesing for one of the crunchy weed edibles he called snacks. Muffy had fallen asleep and was snoring. Cray Cray Bray, a twitchy, scabbed-up, meth-skinny woman with her purple hair tied off in dozens of tuft, rubber-banded clumps. She was fighting an addiction to magic mushrooms, where the mushrooms were really magic. Faceless, wearing the same ratty burlap sack he always wore. No one knew what that guy was thinking, as the eyes were the window to the soul, and there were no eyes on his featureless, flat, milk-white face. And Skulger, the 1,000-year-old dark elf, who'd spent most of her 10 centuries fighting the incessant urge to slather henbane potions on her ink-black skin. And, of course, Pluka, Lincoln's sponsor. Pluka, a recovering nerphead who Lincoln lied to more than anyone else. 6 months. Was Lincoln sober? No, but he had cut way back, enough so that he wondered if he was actually an addict at all. Maybe he was just a guy who partied too much, who needed to learn when to say no. Or maybe he was a boozed-up loser who couldn't protect his own family, couldn't be counted on by those he loved. It was hard to tell. And he still had to go see Callista. If he could come away from that without taking a drink, he'd count it as a win. "Thanks, you guys," he said. "I really appreciate it. I'm afraid I got to cut out early this time. I'll see you all next week." Four slivers of fire floated in the dark room, flickering orange snakes that danced and writhed. 3 had been his max. A few weeks ago, he had managed to manifest the 4th. Tonight, Billy wanted a new max. But he had to be careful. So careful. Because the problem wasn't the amount of filament he possessed, it was the control of it that sometimes escaped him. Billy's outstretched hand trembled, each finger linked to a sliver of fire. Heat curled within him, physical and magical both, a simmering firestorm perpetually crawling within, hunting for a way out, searching for release. He knew he shouldn't be doing this without Dragon. Billy had experienced several oops moments he still hadn't told Lincoln and Magda about. Instances when he had lost control, when the roiling, constant conflagration that was his power leaked from him, slipped through his mental cage, and would have set everything ablaze if it weren't for Dragon inhaling the flame like a living sponge. But Billy couldn't count on Dragon to always be there. He had to learn. He had to grow. Billy felt the roiling ocean within him swirling, the crashing inferno waves splashing against the levee walls, threatening to overflow. He thought of his lessons with Kellius Droman, visualized those walls growing higher, curling inward, containing his power. It worked. The storm within Billy calmed, obeyed his commands once again. He focused on his thumb, tried to make a 5th floating fire snake. Push the energy, but slowly channel it. For an instant, it was there, the 5th column, and then it sputtered out, as did the other 4. His room fell dark. The faint smell of something burning. No outside light, of course, as every window was boarded up with heavy, meshwork-imbued plywood. Billy felt his way to the wall and flipped the light switch. The overhead lights lit up his room. He saw a slightly smoldering, scorched spot on his floor rug. He cursed under his breath, examined the spot. Had fire shot out of his big toe or something? Sometimes that happened. Not like a flamethrower, but more like a laser igniting something at a distance. The fire within was always looking for a way out. He'd learned that the hard way when he had wanked his crank in his bathroom and melted the toilet seat. Billy hurried to that bathroom, wet a washcloth, and dabbed the smoldering spot. It wasn't too bad. This spot was one of many. Link, Magda, and Ariella probably wouldn't even notice it. Not that they came into his room that often, as his room was his space. Dragon would notice, though, sniffing deeply at the new spot while glaring at him with accusatory, dachshund eyes. The old stone church's changes included Billy's room. What had once been 4 bare, damp stone walls and a folding cot was now a place fit for a king. Ariella's contractors had knocked down a wall, conjoining 2 rooms, and they had added a small bathroom as well. Crumbling mortar had been repaired. Then the stone layered with rock wool insulation and armor core wall panels. Yeah, his room was not only fireproof, it was bulletproof. Badass. Ariella was a real pain most of the time, but the head bitch in charge did not cut corners when it came to taking care of her people. Steel, king-size bed frame. Fireproof mattress. Fireproof blankets. Directional sprinkler above the bed. The few times Flame found a way out while Billy slept, there had been no damage. He had his own computer with a big curved screen on the other side of the room in case the sprinkler went off, of course. PlayStation, Xbox, and an old school Nintendo. He didn't have a lot of time to play games as of late, but owning the stuff made him feel good. He had come a long way from his small room at Grandma's, with a tiny, third-hand IKEA desk with a saggy twin bed with a peeling wallpaper. They'd never been able to get that musty smell out of the carpet, and they couldn't afford to replace it. Billy Middleton wasn't a kid anymore, and now his digs reflected that. At the far end of the room, well away from his bed, were 2 walls of stainless steel shelves filled with spell books and magical training devices Link had brought home from Cordis and from various bounty runs. In a vertical area of the shelves, Billy's white scale mail shirt and his guns hung on a headless mannequin. Next to that spot was a special place waiting for Billy to... Next to that spot was a special place waiting to store Billy's signature weapon, which he would fill as soon as he figured out what that signature weapon was. So far, his favorites were this old meshwork cavalry sword from the American Civil War, Link said, "Don't ask where I got it," and a 700-year-old steel Ottoman Empire club called a Bosdagen, which Link had taken off an Artura in Appalachia. Both were super cool, and Billy could set them aflame, but there was something off about them. Billy had tried every weapon in the old stone church, but none of them really spoke to him. He wanted to go shopping at the clearinghouse again, get that huge snake Peanut to show him a few items, but Link and Ariella said it was a bad idea for Billy to go to Cordis. Yeah, Billy wasn't a kid anymore, but those 2, and Magda as well, sure as hell treated him like one most of the time. Vestinian was out there, somewhere. looking for Billy, looking to kill Billy. The same Vestinian who beat Lincoln, who gave Magda those scars, who Grandma was, hopefully, leading on a wild goose chase to keep him clear of Billy. Billy wished he could talk to Delilah, get her advice. Like him, Delilah Droman was a creature who had potentially unlimited power thrust upon her, power she didn't know how to use. But he had no way of contacting her, and she hadn't entered his dreams for 6 months. That hurt. That hurt bad. He needed Delilah, but she had forgotten about him. Billy had to do this himself. Magda feared Vestinian. Lincoln feared Vestinian. Even Grandma feared Vestinian, and she had trashed Lincoln, Magda, Ariella, and Dragon all at the same time while barely breaking a sweat. Someday, if the guy was as powerful as everyone thought, Vestinian would find Billy. When that day came, would Billy be ready? Therein lie a paralyzing catch-22. Billy needed training, but Link and Ariella wouldn't let him train with anyone lest Vestinian catch wind. Billy needed to learn his power so he could defend himself when Vestinian finally came, but how could that happen without someone to train him? Learning alone in this room, it simply wasn't enough. Which was why Billy had taken matters into his own hands. He quietly opened his door, crept downstairs, and peeked into the nave. In the light of the big screen, Billy saw Magda passed out on the couch, Dragon asleep in her lap. Billy knew Magda was lonely. He felt bad for his friend. He truly did. But he couldn't let her problems get in the way of preparing for Vestinian, because Billy's life depended on it. "Dragon," he whispered. "Come here, girl." The dachshund popped up, fully awake in an instant, and bound over the back of the couch. She ran mad circles around Billy's feet as he walked back up the stairs to his room. Billy had learned a lot in the last 6 months. He had learned things that Magda, Link, and Ariella knew about, and some they didn't know about, like the tricks he had picked up from Droman. Billy focused, drew up his filament. For a moment, he let go of his loom of fire and adopted Callista Droman's loom, mimicking the energy he'd seen within the now dead sorcerer. Billy envisioned vines growing, spreading, knitting together to make a specific shape. On the bed, the fireproof blankets rose up as something beneath them took form. The form of a sleeping man. A 6'3", 200-pound man. Only the top of the head peeked out. The creeper vine hair wasn't exactly like Billy's, but in the dark, it'd probably be close enough. With deep concentration and a final flourish of growing skill, Billy added the finishing touch. The fake man began to snore. Billy sagged, already exhausted. Using Droman's loom, even for such a small bit of magic, wiped him out. Billy pointed to the bed. "Dragon, guard." The tiny dachshund rushed to the bed, extending as she ran, as she leapt up, stretching from 1.5 feet long to 15 feet of graceful, living onyx nightmare that circled around the fake man, settling down around him atop the blankets like a living outline. She rested her thick head atop the end of her powerful tail, her big, black, loving eyes aimed at the door. Billy went to the bookshelf, donned his mail shirt. He strapped on his shotgun, his sidearm, and slid his machete into its holster, then walked back to Dragon. "That's my little pickle," he whispered. "Stay here. Guard. I'll see you soon." Dragon let out a low growl. She was not happy about this. She never was. But she was a good girl, and she took Billy's commands seriously. He leaned down, planted a kiss on her big nose, scooched her little ear twice, then slipped out the door and shut it behind him. Billy drew forth his inner power. He rose up, a foot off the floor, and descended the stairs without touching a step, without making a sound. He floated past the nave, all the way to the ground floor men's room before he sat down again. He walked into the bathroom and entered the last stall. Lincoln, gone. Ariella, gone. Magda, passed out. With luck, they never even know Billy had left. He had to go because there was one person, only one, who knew what he needed. Billy leaned over the toilet and put his hands on the tiles with the faintly glowing runes, runes that an unenlightened person would never see. Those runes flared, those runes flashed, and transit pulled Billy Middleton in, pulled him toward Cordis. There we go, bitches. Doot, doot, doot. Story trains are rolling. Hop on. Hello, everyone. Oh, Dr. Daniel Baker, PhD's in the house. Danny boy, our story rings for you. Sean, I don't know where Billy's going. You know what? There are several sex gnomes that would love to help Billy out with whatever he wants. At this point, Billy is a bit of a hunk and has no idea that pretty much everyone who likes dudes who looks at him wants a piece of him. And the sex gnomes, I think they like everything. I don't think there's a lot of rules or delineation going on with Bingles and Not So Tiny Tim and Beta Dilla Boop. I can't pronounce her name now. Cobalt says that was awesome. Great work. Shit is getting deep. All right. Shit is getting deep. Rob and I gnashed our teeth on this sucker all night yesterday. How do I get rid of the chat timer? Boom. There it is. We talked a lot yesterday trying to, we know everything's going, but getting from here to there requires a lot of this. It's building bridges. It's making connections. It's involving everyone. It takes a lot of work, and we tried a bunch of different stuff, and we're pretty tickled with how things wound up. So I'm excited about the story. I think Rob's excited about the story. Chris Grawl in the house says, Billy got some explaining to do. I do got to work on my Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger's one of those impressions that even when it's bad, sometimes you think you're okay at it, and then the next thing you know, it sounds like, what is he, a Russian cavalry officer? What's happening here? Let's go to Maine. Oops. The Schwarmy. Hello, baby. How you doing?
I'm sick.
You're sick. Get those headphones on, doll. Ladies and gentlemen, my fantastic pretty princess wife, who is sick from the cold that I had.
I did not even get to go to Detroit, but I did get this sweet treat.
Yeah, you did. I got that for my baby.
You did?
Yes, she didn't get to go to Detroit, but you know what? I brought home a present for her.
Several.
I brought home Vikings Revenge for you, which is what you are suffering right now.
And this pretty T-shirt. So
I'll tell you a quick story about this gorgeous hoodie on this gorgeous girl. I went to Detroit at the behest of my nephew, who took me to the greatest football game I've ever seen second greatest. Watching my dad win a state title in Michigan was the greatest.
I love that.
Against Detroit Country Day, those sons of bitches.
that.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. But this game was the second greatest football game I've ever seen in my life. The 14-2 Detroit Lions against the 14-2 Minnesota Vikings for the number 1 seed and the best record in the NFL. The Lions prevailed in that game. The Vikings went on to lose, unfortunately, against Washington Commanders, who Detroit faces next week in Detroit. But while I was there, it was Detroit. It was Lion stuff everywhere. I've never seen that community so behind their team. And this is a place where I went to a game when they were 0-14 and the Pontiac Silverdome was sold out, 78,000 people to watch an 0-14 team. Detroit and Michigan loves the Lions. I've never seen anything like this. Every other person had Lions gear on. And there are stores in the mall there that sell all the Michigan sportswear. I go in and there's just all the racks are beat up. There's stuff thrown everywhere because everybody's in a buying frenzy to get their Lions gear in this special magical season. And I started looking at all this stuff for A, and I text A, I'm like, okay, what size, what style? And she gives me all the information. I'm looking at all this stuff. I'm like, you know what, dude, listen, I'm a dude. The last thing I want to do is buy something for $80 at this store, get it home, and watch A try to pretend that she loves it. Oh, it's so great. Oh my God. I love it. Oh, it's so great. So what I did is I just...
Well, you did look, though.
I looked a bunch.
Yeah, a lot.
I thought something would jump out at me, but,
a couple things you said did.
Yeah.
But you guys also know I do not appreciate boobvertising.
What's up, Bruce Buck?
It's very hard for me. Boobvertising is hard for me. Wearing something that people will directly look at your chest to read is hard for me. So I had to pick it out myself.
So as I wound up just texting her, and what I said was, you know what? Why don't you go to NFLshop.com, pick something out, put it on my card. Listen, it's like I bought it, except I'm not there to buy it. Get yourself something nice. Get yourself something special.
We did decide together.
And you sent me a bunch of stuff, and this is one of the things she sent. Although the bedazzled velour Aiden Hutchinson jersey was pretty fucking spectacular.
Oh, yeah. Well, bedazzled Aiden Hutchinson for sure. I did not choose that. I also, I came very close to choosing a studded, on all the seams, like this shoulder seam right here.
Yeah.
Studded with, metal studs. I also did not pick that. But, so I got this sweet sweatshirt, and I did eventually get Scott's Cold. Yes, indeed. Today pretty much is the day that, well, maybe last night.
I got to address a comment in the, Joe, I'm sorry you're feeling well. Sorry you're feeling unwell. Sorry. Terry Bush announced. Terry Bush, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. I got to address someone. Cobalt says bandwagoneers. Cobalt, allow me to educate you. There are an enormous amount of people in Michigan who were born Lions fans and the diehard Lions fans. And then at some point in one of the, batting 200 average win seasons where they win 2 or 3 or 4 games, and it happens year after year after year where they just had it. And they're like, you know what? Screw this organization. And they take off their Lions gear and they throw it in a closet, or they totally get rid of it. And they got fed up because we were one of the top 3 worst organizations in the history of the NFL, along with the Jets and the Browns. And now the Giants are not. They're way down.
There's
fireworks. Celebrate. Celebration times. Come on. And then they a couple years go by and they get excited and they draft and they get Scott Mitchell. And then they're like, hey, you know what? Let's get back in this. We're going to make this happen. And then they win. They go 8-8. They go, 7-9. And then they go back into the gutter and they throw their stuff out again. So there's a lot of people with brand new Lions gear who are absolutely not bandwagoneers. They're abused spouses is what they are.
Well, yeah.
This time he means it. No, this time this time we're going to make it work. It's that bad. Yeah, all teams have had a run. Good.
Man, Bailey, I feel you. I tried really hard not to get this cold, and we thought Scott was much better. And we might have flown too close to the sun. But that's all right. That's all right.
By which we finally made out like a married couple does.
I mean, it was more than a week.
Got a little, hey, girl.
Hey, this is a PG-13 show.
Oh, all right. I keep trying to tell her it's legal. Hey, it's legal now. We're married. That's a Tom Hanks line. You can look that up. Pam Weber says 50 years for the Jets. Jude in the house. Okay, now stop talking about it now.
My brother said my brother is has a lot of obligations as a veteran, and so he knew he was going to be a little bit late tonight. So I'm glad you're here. I love you.
I would like to take a moment though that one of my best pals, my co-writer Rob Otto, is a big Vikings fan. Vikings went 14-3 in the regular season. The most wins ever for the franchise. A fantastic season. Things fell apart a little bit at the end, but still 14 wins. Congratulations. Everybody in the chat room, let's go. Let's give it up. Give it up. Big year for the Vikings. Big year for the Vikings.
It's a big deal. I mean, I'm learning more and more every year still about football, and any playoff team is an impressive team of those people. I also found out, I actually mentioned this to Scott when we were watching the Commanders.
Yep.
And if you don't watch football, the Commanders won with a last play field goal. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And the kicker fixed his hair and fixed his shoelaces like 75 times.
He's like a well-documented OCD, right?
I know.
Yeah,
and I want to say that. I didn't know that. I mentioned it because he kept almost putting on his helmet, but then fixing his hair, and almost putting on his helmet and fixing his hair. And it turns out he is very publicly a public figure with OCD. And so I wish I had known that, actually, because it was remarkable and strange to see, because he's got super short hair, and it never even occurred to me that might be
I honestly feel like a fucking asshole, because I watched A and I were watching the game together, and this guy comes out and he's fixing his shoes and he's fixing his hair, taking his and like I should know an OCD person when I see one, or an ADHD person when I see one, because the amount of shit that this angel has to deal with this odd brain.
Yeah.
But I was like, look at the idiot. And then I figure, I'm like, oh, I feel bad. But then he made the field goal. So it was okay.
Right. And,
it was okay.
And notwithstanding that meant that Rob's team doesn't progress, I wanted to acknowledge...
that wasn't the same game. That was a different game.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Sick. But what I'm saying is I wanted to acknowledge that, because I absolutely had that same reaction. And I love that we get to be like, bro, you had to do that to win this game. Like, that is how your brain works. And I appreciate your flavored brain too.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Phenomenal season. And that brings up a good point. I forgot to do, let's do the housekeeping now.
Yeah.
So this is what's called a segue. This is how A and I win all the goddamn fucking Emmys, you bitches. Crypt Book 2's second draft is hit 60% through today. I'm very nervous about it. And this isn't performative fucking shit. I'm like, we're 60% of the way into the book at this point, and there hasn't been any significant fighting yet. There's a lot of structure and building. So I'm a little worried how that goes. I may revisit that as I come around.
But junkies, feel free to help me out and let him know that Scott Sigler books are not just about action. There's character development, there's strategery, there's all sorts of stuff. That it doesn't have to be a big whiz bang all the time.
But there is always action in the back section. Let's make sure we get that straight. Sunday, January 12th, Sunday, January 12th. Oh shit, I forgot to stop recording, didn't I? Hold on. You're going to have to clear all that bunk, baby.
You're going to have to clear all that bunk.
I will clear all that bunk. Sunday, January 12th, Slay Season 3, Episode 2, Double-Ended Entendre, a name I'm exceptionally proud of. Thank you very much. When live in your podcast feed. If you've not heard that, go check it out. It's fun. Wednesday, January 15th, Deep Cuts, Episode 33, When Characters Do Distasteful Things. When I have to make characters do awful things to people. We had a whole episode on that. If you guys missed that, you should go listen to it. Sunday, January 19th, tonight's Slay episode, Clean and Sober, goes live in the feed. And then Tuesday, January 21st, Deep Cuts, episode 34, 2024 year in review, which we're about to do right now, goes live in the feed. Wednesday, January 22nd, Slay Season 3 continues with S3E4. I don't have a title for it yet. And we'll have empty set updates. No, wait, that's not right. We know what we're going to do. Next week, you bitches. Next week for Deep Cuts, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about football, and we are going to pick the current NFL players that is the closest analog to all of your Kraken's stars, all the big starters in the Krakens.
Or GFL stars.
Or GFL stars. Good point. GFL stars. So, your Yalla the Biter, your Quentin Barnes, your John Tweedy, your Denver. We're going to pick the current NFL player that I feel is closest to it. Now, A will have some input. She may come up with what about this guy? What about this guy? What about this guy?
That's exactly
But I will be the final arbiter. However, A's football knowledge is growing rapidly.
I know this was my first season of fantasy football, and it has been absolutely delightful and wildly confusing.
But A's also closing in on a decade of watching the NFL on and off with me, and her knowledge base is growing. It's going to be a really, really fun episode. So you guys, you can all write down your picks. We would love to hear that in the chat room. Like, who is your current Quentin Barnes? Who is your current Jude Tweedy? We're going to go through the whole list. It's going to be an absolute blast. And then the episode of that, we'll probably talk about who we think our Super Bowl picks are going to be. Go ahead, babe.
Maybe. We might do that. There's a lot going on in the writer's world, too, so we might talk about other things. But yeah, absolutely. If you guys email us before next Wednesday with any player on any NFL football team, hell, I'll give you any rugby team in the world.
Let's not get crazy.
Well, but why not? There are some players who are probably more rugby than they are football right now. And then if it's in space 700 years from now, it'll work. The rules will have changed.
I'm writing right down in the chat room now.
So yeah, go ahead and send those to info@emptyset. We'll do that next week. In the meantime, though, do you want to get started with tonight's?
Fuck yeah, I do.
Shabang.
Hold on. I told you guys we had some system update issues that I didn't entirely panic for.
But before you do, you can call up that. Just don't hit record.
Okay.
And I will read you. There are quite a lot of people who agree with me.
In what regard?
That you don't have to have a book that has a whiz bang every other page. We appreciate your story development.
There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of drama coming up. It's great.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So listen, we've got, let's see.
Oh, we're ready to roll when you are, Pumpkin, for the... So I think this is going to be one of the most fun episodes, or as I would have said back in Sheboygan days, one of the funner episodes we've ever had. And that's going to be next week. So, if you're a football fan, if you're a GFL fan, if you're a fan of us, clear the schedule. We want to hang out with you guys. We want to hear what your thoughts are. I honestly cannot believe we've never thought before to do this. In 15 years of GFL books and all the podcasting, this has never crossed our mind one time.
And we will start the episode next week by talking about who...
Red Jacket Man, you're wrong. Hey, guy. Hey, buddy.
That Scott had a player in mind when he wrote Perry Dawsey, but we get emails frequently with God.
I just got to say, every year there's a new GFL fan who just discovered the series, and we get this email. Hi, my name's Mike, longtime listener, first time caller. That's a paraphrase for you sports radio guys. Big fan. I gotta ask. I'm 100% sure, and I've talked to my buddies, that you based Quentin Barnes on Josh Allen. Can you please just email me back?
Just let us know for sure.
Just let me know one way or another. Thank you so much. Love your series. You guys are great.
Scott Sigler.
Yes.
Did you? I have several questions. Did you base Quentin Barnes on Josh Allen?
I did not, baby.
Why?
Because when I started writing the GFL and Quentin Barnes, not only was Josh Allen not alive, Josh Allen's parents hadn't boinked yet, probably hadn't even met yet. It's distinctly possible.
So
no, they would have been alive.
They would have been
Josh
alive,
Allen's
but not
parents,
boinking.
Junior high, high school, that's and this happens every fucking season when a new large, strong running quarterback comes out, everybody's like, is it this guy? Is it this guy? And it's so cute. I'm like, oh, you sweet summer child. It's delightful. I love it.
Donna Millar in the Facebook chat room. No, it doesn't have to be a current player. It can be any player in the NFL, I will say.
No, we got to put some parameters on this because that's a whole separate episode.
Send in.
You can send in what you want. My goal with this episode is guys you can watch playing football either this year or next year or in the upcoming playoffs. We're going to tailor this episode to current players in the NFL. Okay? That's totally the fair. Angle. That's the angle.
However, send in everybody if you have like, oh gosh, Quentin Barnes is absolutely this guy, or Jew Tweedy, because I have a John Tweedy who I absolutely believe is John Tweedy, but I'm not even sure if he's living anymore.
Lyle
send those in.
I got to know who this is. You never told me this before. I got to know.
Well, you just get it.
I
thought this was going to be a whole nother episode, and he was like, oh, is it Lila Zeta?
You know what? I got to say this in the nicest possible way, in the nicest, most romantic, loving possible way. You just got so laid by my wife. My wife compared Lyle Alzado to John Tweedy. Yes!
But I only know like 4 players before 2009. One is Vinny Testaverde, so, it's hard. But
and those of you motherfuckers who don't know who Lyle Alzado is, don't go look up football highlights. Go to IMDb, look up Lyle Alzado. And Rob, is the movie Killdozer? I think it's Killdozer. Rob, please look up the Lyle Alzado movie. He was a special human being, and you are, I love
also,
you. You're great.
In this same episode,
so fucking great.
My brother in the chat room said, hey, do you hold animus towards the late 1970s Pittsburgh Steelers? And before we start Deep Cuts, I will tell you the reason he asked that is without any knowledge of football whatsoever, while my brother was deeply, deeply, deeply into his Pittsburgh Steeler fandom in the mid-70s, I just ruined his football memorabilia by stepping on it and being a total shit little sister. So I don't hold animus towards the 1970s Pittsburgh Steelers. I do hold a lot of regret in my heart, though, now that I'm a football fan.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have teased you with next week's episode of Deep Cuts enough. Now it is time for this week's episode of Deep Cuts. This might not take too long, but we will get her done. And it's a little bit late, so if you guys got to tap out, of course, there's no story content in the Deep Cuts. There's nothing you need to listen to here or watch us do here that's going to pertain to Slay or the Crypt or anything else. But we are now going to get into it. Ready, baby?
I am. Give me just a sec.
Record.
3, 2.
While we didn't put out many books in 2024, we did do a lot of stuff. I am serious. We had podcasts. We made progress on books. I swear to God, we were working hard this year.
Mm-hmm. And we are not only going to recap our 2024, we're going to tell you all the glorious things the FDO has to put out in 2025. And it is a lot of glory. We'll be right back after this.
Okay. Oh, God. Kim Hansen's going to make lemon bars and contemplate the new dog she might be adopting.
What a lucky pup.
Bye. Send pictures. Send pictures.
We love you.
Here we go. Welcome to Deep Cuts, the bonus episode of the Scott Sigler Slices Fiction Podcast, where a sci-fi author and an audiobook narrator discuss things and stuff in the world of fiction and pop culture. I am Scott Sigler, sci-fi horror author, known far and wide as the future Dark Overlord. I would also like to point out I am also known as, a lot of people are saying it, the People's Author.
And I'm A.B. Sigler, a publisher at Empty Set Entertainment and audiobook narrator. On this Deep Cuts, we're discussing our 2024 in review and what's coming up for us in 2025.
A bonus reminder, this is a bonus episode. It is not part of any particular story. You don't need to listen to this to know what's going on in Slay or any other story I'm telling, but we would love for you to listen and be a part of what we are doing.
So tonight is definitely a hodgepodge of empty set things.
It is a podge for sure.
A podge.
Let's
go.
Are you
ready to get into it?
I have never been more ready in my life.
All right. So We're going to go over our 2024. For us, it's an unusual year because we often travel more and publish more than 2024 had either one of those things. But that also sets us up for a big 2025. So let's get into it.
Just giant girthy 2.5. 2.5. 2.5. Let's go.
So 2024, we did a handful of traveling, not a ton, but a handful of traveling. We're still getting back on board with the convention circuit and things like that. The convention circuit is also changed quite a bit since the pandemic. So this year, we made a personal trip to San Jose in March of 2020. That was our first trip of the, or 2024, sorry. That was our first trip of the year to see our friends who just this past weekend moved to San Diego. So that won't be on the docket for May of this year.
Okay.
In June and July, we went to Michigan to do our...
Do Slay. To work on Slay with Robbie.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a... what happens is we go to visit family for a week, and then we go to Sheboygan, where Rob, Otto, and Scott went to high school and grew up, and they do a writer's retreat for the week. How was that writer's retreat?
It was great. We fleshed out Slay season 3, right? Or was it 2 at that point? I'm not good with time.
I think it was 3.
We fleshed out Slay season 3 and outlined 4 and 5. And then Rob and I worked on a new project, which we're not going to mention at this time. We spent several days in the new project, and we have not been able to make any progress on that new project since. I believe that is mostly because Rob is being very kind, that I am absolutely swamped with all the shit I've got going on. So we haven't got onto that. So what we're going to do, can I talk what we're going to do for 2025?
Yeah, I was just going to add. So we've confirmed that 2025 in July, we're going back. We're doing the same writers retreat.
2025.
And what are you guys going to talk about?
Rob and I are going to absolutely lock down grid work, ironclad, in chains, not to be changed at all by Scott's crazy brain coming up with new stuff. Slay seasons 4 and 5. We're going to lock it down. We're going to lock it down, get everything figured out. We already basically know where everything is going, but the magic of Slay, of doing this for you guys each week, I write a chapter each week, we podcast it each week. The magic of that is sometimes super fun stuff happens. I'll go, hey, what about this? And Rob and I will text, we'll call, we'll Zoom. We are not going to do much of that for seasons 4 and 5. We are going to lock everything down because the big finish for Slay in the finale of season 5 is absolutely spectacular. And now at this point, as we've begun season 3, it's going to take a lot of work to make sure we thread everything together and deliver that. So that is what we will be doing.
So 2024, we had the normal Michigan trip in the summer. We see family the first week. We go do that the second week, or vice versa, whichever. We're still going to do the same thing in 2025. So that is not, if you are a Michigander, that is not a public-facing trip. We concentrate our trips back to the East Coast. So that one specifically will not, or not the East Coast, the East. And that one specifically will not be a public-facing trip unless you happen to see us out at a restaurant or something, which is obviously unlikely. So Michigan, July of 2024. But let's back up because, or 2025, but let's back up because in June of 2025, we are going to StokerCon in Stamford, Connecticut. And that is a public-facing thing. So I want to not jump back and forth the whole time, but that one specifically I thought I would mention. So we're going to go back to 2024. In July, you went to Burbank.
Yes.
To table reads.
Oh, that is correct. It was a great experience. We did Versus, which is a screenplay I wrote a long time ago. And that I call this, the tagline for the screenplay is Saw meets Gladiator. 16 normal people get kidnapped off the street and are forced to fight in a tournament to the death in a normal bracket style tournament. I've had the screenplay, been pitching the screenplay from the early days of podcasting back when I was with Pod Show, and we were trying to get this made. We tried to make it ourselves. We've shopped it around because this is an extraordinarily affordable micro or low budget, micro budget film that can be done. But we've never been able to pull it off.
One set, right?
One set. It's a one location movie. If you can find a warehouse with an office attached to the warehouse, you're basically done. Those are all the sets you need. So I specifically wrote this inspired by Blair Witch Project on how to write into the screenplay the fact that you might see a camera, you might see cables, that you don't have money for things like stabilizers. Blair Witch Project was revolutionary in we can't afford to do fuck all. Let's write the fact that we can't afford to do fuck all into the movie. So when you see we don't have any money, you don't think about no money. You go, well, this makes perfect sense. That is Versus. And we got to go do that with the Table Reads crew, which is the number one fiction podcast of 2024 is Table Reads. It's phenomenal. They get a bunch of Hollywood actors together to read parts in a live script. They're riffing off each other as they go. They include outtakes and retakes and do all this fun stuff. They did it with my script called Versus, and we had a blast. I got to do 2 parts for it, and it is magic. So if you want to listen to that, search for Versus Table Read in your favorite podcast app, and that can be VERSUS or VS period. We spelled it a couple of different ways, but got to go to Hollywood, finally got to see this screenplay brought to life, got to watch pro actors do their interpretation of parts and do it in a way that I had not envisioned and was just blown away. There's so much talent out there, so much creativity and talent. Loved it. It was great. Love that team.
So I did not go to Burbank for that trip, but I did listen to the cast when it came out, and it sounded like you had an absolutely enjoyable even just hearing the actual cast, it 100% sounded like you had the time of your life.
I absolutely had the time of life. A and I have been fortunate enough to be on set for an episode of Justified when the people who made Justified were going to try and make Infected, which didn't pan out. That's the nature of the business. And that was absolutely amazing. Getting to watch Timothy Oliphant do his thing, getting to see how all the sausage is made, back to that conversation. Mm-hmm. But this was really special because this was my property that I've been working on for a very, very long time. Getting to see it brought to life with a lot of talented, dedicated, happy people was absolutely phenomenal. So check that out if you get a chance. I think you'll probably enjoy it. It is very mean. This is not a heartwarming family story, ladies and gentlemen. It's just not.
So then we have a quiet end of summer, early fall, but then in October, you spend a week as a guest lecturer at ASU.
Yes, that was phenomenal.
It was phenomenal. We did crazy things, including riding in a driverless taxi. But let's focus on the you part, which is you got to talk about world building and storytelling in the mix department. Is that
the mix center, the MX Center at Arizona State University. Arizona State is a forward-thinking university that is trying to redefine education for the modern age. So they have a video game department. They have a media department that focuses on online media and online work. And they are looking at how to utilize AI paralleled, partnered with creators to make new content and a lot of other things too. And it's an audacious experiment because technology changes so rapidly. By the time you instill a curriculum and a program and instructors and hire people to do these things and bring students in, it is likely by the time those students are sophomores that everything has already changed.
Yeah, 100%.
Arizona State is absolutely one of the most cutting edge, forward-thinking, versatile, agile programs in the world. And what they are trying to do is they're looking at ways to take the Sigler IP, all the Sigler IP, and make it available to the students to make short films, to make games, to make TV shows, to make internet content, to do all these different things and not have to, go through the permission process that can take forever. So the end goal of this is if a student at ASU, I love the GFL, I want to make the GFL football armor as part of my costuming curriculum. I want to make the crypt uniforms as part of my costuming curriculum. I make props, and I want
a cool suit.
I want a cool suit. I make props. I want to literally build a VR CIC in the Keeling, and that is my final exam. All of this will be available to those students, and they don't need to ask permission.
Yeah.
They will be allowed to reach out to me directly and say, do I have this right? What do you think about this? Can I get some input on this? But the main thing is they have an existing commercial IP available that they can use as part of their education. And it gets better. It gets better. The other part of it is, if they are really go-getters, let's say they want to make a GFL video game and they have permission to make the GFL video game. If they take that game to market, they get paid as creators. ASU gets a little taste, they got to get a little something for the trouble. And built into the system is I, the IP originator, am also going to get paid if this is successful. But from the perspective of a entertainment entrepreneur, a game designer, a movie producer, they get to know they've got this existing set that they are allowed to go, this toolkit they can go play with, do whatever they want, and they're not going to get in trouble. And if they're successful while making a business, they can do that.
Yep. And this is kind of an interesting approach for us because we're Gen Xers, and Gen Xers don't really have the same quite, I'll say, language or toolkit. So I think depending on how old you are right now, AI coming into our lives is fraught with danger. There be dragons. But if you're 18 and just going to college for the first time, you are putting your trust in people older and smarter than you. And so AI is not necessarily terrifying. It's figure-outable in a different way. Like
Continue.
Scott had a lecture, one lecture at ASU where we were talking specifically about how to use AI for the purposes of making your art better. And there was a jazz musician in the class having to take this class, and they were not at all into the idea of AI. They thought you can't do that because jazz is very accidental. It's very experimental. It's very riffing each time you do a thing. And he was very opposed to it unless he was using it himself. And that was kind of a revelation to me, just sitting and listening to Scott talk, because Scott had ideas of how AI can help. And we've talked about this on this cast, where AI can help him create a language or understand. So he's using a language consistently, but not in anything public facing. And that was a revelation to that kid too. He didn't really think he could use AI like he might use a music stand, for example, or a computer or computer software or anything like that. And I was surprised that I also found a, oh yeah, that makes sense to me moment. So it was a really, really spectacular week for me as a consumer of entertainment and other people's creations, to sort of see how it's going to be there. We have to figure that out as we go.
Yeah. And I will tell you some of the things we saw while we were there, some of the AI shit. You guys, if you've been watching my show or listening to my podcast, listening to these deep cuts, you may be aware that I think AI is a massive, massive threat to creatives earning a living, because the corporate overlords, the Microsofts, the Amazons, they are absolutely going to use AI as much as they possibly can to make content that they can profit off of and not have to pay creators a living wage or at all. Some of the things we saw at ASU, when people are like, oh my God, AI will never have a human soul. AI, it's all garbage. It's like, look at his fingers are different. You can't figure it out. His eyes don't track right. Some of the shit we saw while we were there absolutely scared the living fuck out of me as someone who's dedicated his life to creating. And as a musician, some of the AI stuff we saw as far as like, let's type in these prompts and it'll make a song. I was like, everybody in that room was like, this is silly. I'm like, you guys are deluding yourself. This music and this singer is indiscernible from things that are in the top 20 right fucking now. If there was a pretty young person singing this actual same song and you could see them, you would not know it is AI. I guarantee you guys there is shit coming. We're on the beginning edges of this. It is scary. It is powerful. And ASU, to their credit, is trying to figure out like, well, okay, we know this is coming. How does this work as a partnership with human beings, not as a replacement for human beings? So kudos to them for that.
Okay, it is time for us to take a quick break. If you have a minute, listen to any ads that pop up. There's only one or two, and it helps the show. And we'll be right back right after this.
I can't smooch you in the face.
You can't
because your cooties may have mutated.
They may have.
They are agile. They're very adept.
They are.
They're like this.
Do you want to welcome back?
Yeah, of course. And then I'm going to go play some Fortnite, dog. Hey, wait. Michael Moore, I'll be on Fortnite later. All right. We're here. Okay, ready? Wait. Before we do that, are we going to get the podcasting numbers? Because that's a big thing. Do you have that scheduled? Yep. Okay, ready, go. Welcome back to Deep Cuts.
In this episode, we're discussing our 2024 in review and what's coming up from us in 2025. So, in 2024, on December 1st of 2024, make a guess at how many downloads you had for the podcast.
On December 1st, 2.3 million.
2.5 million.
2.5 million? Wait, on December 31st or December 1st?
December 1st.
December 1st, okay.
December 1st was 2,500,546 downloads.
2,500,000. You guys, that's a lot of goddamn episodes. That's all stuff that came out of my noggin in our Deep Cuts. Wow.
Yeah,
That's astonishing. Now, back in the pod show days, way back when we started out, we racked up some big numbers, but and then things went down for a while, and then we partnered up with a company called Realm and Evo Terra, and they helped us get our podcast sort of like, you've got all these episodes sitting out. Let's put all these episodes back online in this particular format presented to the marketplace. And the result of that was 2.5 million downloads. Mm-hmm. It's great. It's very satisfying, which means we're entertaining a lot of people. We're delivering, solid stories. We did the engine work. We went under the hood, make sure everything lined up, rock solid storytelling that we worked fucking super hard on, that we worked very diligently upon, and winds up with $2.5 million in 2024.
Yeah, and the other interesting part about that is, with good information from people who are good colleagues and podcasters, about 5 years ago, we decided to pull down everything but the first book as a podcast in a series. So you could listen, for example, to Infected. Well, probably Infected is bad. You could listen to Alive, but you would have to purchase a light or a loan. And Realm was able to help us sort of see, that's okay. You can do all of this. And that's been very, very, very useful for us as we move forward and as we're moving into 2025. 2025 is going to be a little bit different than the last handful of years, because in 2025, Scott is chained to his computer working on more Crypt for you. And Crypt we don't own, and we can't podcast. So it's weird for us. All these years later, 15 years later in our business, we don't get the option to podcast the Crypt because the world is changing. And we signed that deal with the Crypt in the pandemic, and things were weird. And that is the case. So while he's not doing publishing the Crypt by podcast, that's how Slay came into being, which I love, and I know you guys are here because you listened to Slay just a half an hour ago. And so these things are the way we balance dancing with the one you came with, which is a phrase that has given Scott his entire career, and it is something that his dad used to say. And
yeah, my dad was a football coach, and in Sheboygan, Michigan, 2-time state champ football coach. And my dad had a system called the Wing T and an education system, offensive called the Wing T, an educational program in place by which you didn't have to be a 6'4", 240-pound uber athlete to be able to excel at a particular position. So he was able to take farmer kids, any old kid, dirty butt kids, anything you want, and like, hey, I can tell you are intelligent. I can tell you are semi-athletic or very athletic. You're going to play this position, and here's the 10 things you have to learn to play this position. And if you learn these things, you'll be a starter and have great success in football. It got kids to buy in. What that led to was, with a system called the Wing T, an offense called the Wing T, is it is a magical football system in which the defense isn't entirely sure who has the ball. It is related to single wing. That's football knowledge going deep. Let me cut to the chase. Cut to the chase was, we ran the ball an awful lot, and people couldn't stop the run because they didn't know if the fullback had it, the halfback had it, or the quarterback had it, or if the quarterback was going to pass, because the kids were disciplined and educated and knew what they had to do. And that basically meant we racked up anywhere from 280 yards to 400 yards a game in running. We were beating people by 30, 40 points a game. Very successful program, winning 8 or 9 games a year. And except the people who are casual fans of football would be in the stands complaining, why doesn't he throw the ball more? Why doesn't he have a modern offense? And my dad's response was, look, dude, we're beating people by 3 touchdowns. This works. You dance with the one that brought you. Meaning, if someone takes you to a dance and it's great, you dance with that person. You don't go looking at all the other people involved. You dance with the one that brought you. And that has resonated within my life and my career, basically to the people who enjoy the podcast.
Yeah, and we will always want to do that. We will always want to dance with the ones that brought us. That said, the game itself is changing. The industry itself is changing. We noticed that in 2020 when we were late getting to the process of printing the gangster, but we were ready, and then we couldn't print it because there was no paper available. So we're adjusting as we go. We're learning as we go. We're changing things as we go, but we're still going to dance with the one that brought us. That's very important to us.
Yeah. I just checked the numbers. We finished up 2024 with 2.85 million downloads. So December was a pretty good month. We were just a hair shy of 3 million downloads for the year. So if you are listening to this right now, thank you for being a listener. We greatly appreciate you. It was a big year for us. We're very happy, and we're very excited about where things are going to go in 2025.
So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But in the Twitch chat, Sean Dyer asked, Wing T must have made quite an impression since you brought it in to the All-Pro or the MVP. I'd have to check. It is a huge, huge lesson for every Sigler, including me, who only joined the Sigler ranks 5 years ago. This idea that you should consistently stay with something that does you well is a very hard lesson to learn in some ways. It's the same idea as if nothing is broke, don't fix it.
Yes,
it is very hard to commit to sometimes.
And it is a basic concept that resonates throughout all of the ages, in all eras of civilization, that if you can identify something that makes sense, that is logical to you, and you apply yourself to that thing, and you do an enormous amount of repetition and specialization, and you commit to the craft, eventually you will find some degree of success. Yeah. It is a common element that has gone through martial arts forever and ever and ever, which is if you have a system and you drill a system and you are intelligent and common sense about it and flexible enough to react to little things, you can wind up being a very efficient person at this thing, and you can have success. Not by doing all of the things, but by doing a select group of things very well.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy. Like what I have learned in the last handful of years is dance with the one that brought you is easy to say and hard to execute sometimes. You want to try something to boost your experience, to boost your sales, to boost whatever. You want to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks every single moment of the day when things aren't going as exactly as you'd hoped. But there is longevity in sticking with something you know works, even if it doesn't give you the big high highs. It also doesn't give you the big low lows. And
on a short note, there is also an enormous amount of empowerment in the general concept we are talking about. Daniel Baker, PhD, in the chat room says there are still hundreds of kids who would run through a wall for coach being my dad, because my dad believed that any kid who wanted to come out for football should be able to play, should be on the team. If you can't grab your butt with both hands, but you will come to practice, you will work hard, and you're willing and you're tough, you're going to be in that uniform on Friday night and you're going to have a great time. If you cast that net wide, you find people who are good at a particular thing. And many of the people in our football program had never been told they were good at anything in their entire life.
Anything, not just football.
Anything. They were told they were worthless. They were told they were losers. And my dad would say, I think you have potential. Come to practice, join the team, work your ass off, be willing to take a beating, and listen to what I say, and let's see what happens. And out of that group, you wind up with kids they were always good. They were always smart. They were always tough. No one ever gave them a chance. And it's a beautiful thing in my life to resonate that is my father who brought so many people in, but that influenced what we're talking about. Dance with the one that brought you is also anybody who wants to participate, encourage them, support them, train them, and then let's see what they can do.
As a new sigler, I will also say one of the things that coach does is everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome as long as you are not trying to tear down the program. If you're trying to be subversive or whatever, I don't know how that fits. But if you want to show up and participate, you don't have to stand on the sidelines, on the wall, be a wallflower. Mm-hmm. Like there is a space for you is the other side of that. It might not be what you want, but there is absolutely a space for you in this team. And as a person who didn't get to be on teams very much growing up, it's very interesting and wonderful that my father-in-law, in his way, still coaches every single day.
Yeah.
We have told this several times that I don't think that's working, babe.
There we go. I forgot. Is it not working?
Okay, there we go. I guess.
Okay, back to your cam. We know that works. I see the problem. Good.
I've said many times, the very first time I met my now father-in-law, I asked him to help, if I could help him cook, because he was making dinner that day that we arrived, and he was making one of Scott's favorites, Kung Pao shrimp. And I said, I'll do anything. I learn better and learn a recipe or whatever by watching, and I would love to, or by doing, and I would love to learn this. And he asked me if I felt comfortable cutting grape tomatoes. If I thought I could handle it, could I cut them in half?
I mean, if you think you can handle it.
And I was so flummoxed by that. It was kind of a beautiful thing because I was like, how do you not cut a grape tomato in half correctly? Like I was so confused. But it wasn't about him thinking I couldn't do it. It was about him giving me the incentive and opportunity inside myself. It wasn't him saying, I know you can do it, which when I was with him, I would always know I could do it, so to speak. It was him saying, if you think you can do it, I know you can do it. And that is wildly motivating and tenacious in its brain wormedness. Like, if I think I can do it applies to so many things. And so it's that sort of coach voice still in my head 5 years later.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What else we got coming 2025?
So we're just going to talk about 2025.
Let's go. We got so much meat. We got a barbecue coming.
We do. We have so much coming. We're going to talk about it. But first we have to talk about, in case you guys missed it, Scott left home the first weekend of 2025. What did you do, sir?
I went to the Detroit Lions game. Detroit Lions versus the Minnesota Vikings. Both teams 14-2. Pinnacle seasons. A record number of wins for each franchise. Meeting head to head in a clash of the Titans to determine the winner of the NFC North, the Norris Division, and to get the number 1 seed in the NFL playoffs and to be the winningest NFL team in the 2024-2025 season at Ford Field, home field of the Detroit Lions. And I got to go because my nephew Tyler is a goddamn gangster and got his bald ass old uncle a ticket. And we went and watched the game. And
How'd
it
it
was
go?
magical.
How'd you guys do?
Great. Well, the Lions won that game. I would not say it was the best game the Vikings have played throughout the season. And Sam Darnold, the quarterback of the Vikings, could have played a little better. But the Detroit Lions, beleaguered with injuries, bleeding from the waist and the legs and basically the side of the throat, barely able to field a team, 14 starters on the IR, and let me remind you that football only has 11 starters on defense and offense. They were crippled. They were hamstrung. They were decimated on the defensive side of the ball, and yet they held the Minnesota Vikings, a powerful offensive organization, to no touchdowns and 3 field goals. And the Detroit Lions won, and it was one of the best experiences of my entire life. That was the start of my 2025.
I had him tell you about that just so that you guys saw the joy that I got to see, because he didn't post much about it until he got home, but also to let you guys know this. What else did you do? Did you watch any movies?
Oh my God. So I have 2 new nephews, and one of them is just recently turned 2. And his nickname is Big Tiny. He's going to be a large human being. I mean, a large human being. And Big Tiny and I went to Legoland, and where I caught a wicked cold because there's a lot of snotty 3 to 5 year olds like wiping the nose and sticking their hand in the Lego bin, which I stuck my hand in because my nephew wanted to build stuff. And we hung out and we watched Monsters Inc. and then Monsters University. And I have never seen these movies in their entirety before. And I got to tell you, man, those Pixar bitches know what the fuck they are doing. These were fun movies. I had a great time. I literally went as much as 48 hours without doing one iota of work. I didn't write. I didn't do email. I didn't Machiavellian plan for the death of millions. I hung out with my nephew and watched movies and played with trucks and had the goddamn time of my life. And it was magical. I loved it.
Which is wonderful, because if you guys know Scott's stories and you happen to know Monsters, Inc., they are divergent in 1,000 ways and yet similar in some ways. So it was super fun for him to come home with sort of a laundry list of, I would like to watch these movies because I watched this one movie and the story development, the character, all this stuff was great. And I love an animated movie. And we have a whole big list of them that he came home. Ice Age he hasn't seen. The Croods he hasn't seen. Moana he hasn't seen. Coco he hasn't seen. And we get to do that together. And I am sure it is going to influence his characters in his stories too, even though they are divergent stories.
Arthur the Scare Pig is now my favorite character in the world. I love that. I love that character.
Monsters University, apparently.
Monsters University and Sully. So why I brought this up is I am largely, how do I describe this? I am a large piece of inflexible coral surrounded by a sponge. So there's a center core to what I do storytelling wise. There are a certain set of rules, a certain set of parameters, a certain set of schools, which will not be violated by any stretch. And if it takes me longer to put out products than it should, it's because of that center core. But that is wrapped in a juicy, flexible outside, sponge-like, which takes in all the influences that I see and the Monsters, Inc. franchise and all the Pixar stuff, which I have not watched because A and I don't have our own children. We only watch these things with other people's children, really has a lot of influence. You can't see really great. You cannot watch or listen to exceptionally disciplined, talented, hardworking storytelling that has resolution and emotional fulfillment and not be influenced by those works. To be like, I want to know what you did to make my heart beat that particular way. I want to know, how did you make me emotional about these non-existent computer-generated images? It's because they are great storytellers.
Do you think that your understanding of that was different because you got to watch your grandnephew actually experience all of that? Do you think if I had said, "Hey, let's watch Ice Age tonight," without having seen that piece, do you think it would be different?
It definitely helped. It helped a lot that watching formulaic mythological storytelling from the perspective of a human being who not only can't entirely process everything they are seeing, has never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
And as human beings, we do not absorb the emotional experiences of our great-grandparents, grandparents, our parents, our uncles and aunts. We experience everything we see for the first time ourselves, no matter what people around us say. And that is extraordinarily important as a storyteller to realize that if I tell a story that's sort of like another story, that doesn't fucking matter to a 14-year-old who's never experienced that other story.
Not at
What
all.
matters is they experience it, they see the tapestry that the artist is creating, and if the artist is good enough at selecting fabric and stitching and drawing a line, they are brought into it and it touches them and stays with them for the rest of their lives. That's why watching movies anew with my 2-year-old nephew was a magical experience, and I hope to continue to repeat it as he gets older.
This is my favorite thing that has happened so far in 2025, this idea, because Shakespeare, when he wrote Richard III, Richard has a line that sort of says, there's nothing new in the entire universe that hasn't already been storied and told. And obviously that was in the 1600s, so that was remarkably true and remarkably not very forward thinking. And so this new approach is kind of a beautiful thing, because we could have watched all those movies and it would have had a different impact, I think.
Yeah.
So
I think we got to get to what's coming out in 2025.
yeah,
don't we?
we're going to do that, because we
you're such
don't
a
want to keep you
genius.
guys too
You
much
guys,
longer.
My wife is a goddamn genius. I don't know if you guys know this. She's a goddamn genius.
And a little bit sick, so maybe this is going a little long, but let's go.
Let's go. Let's rock.
So that was the first thing, the first trip you took in 2025.
Yep.
You are also making a family trip in February.
Am I?
You are.
Where am I
You're
going?
to Florida to visit your folks in February. I'm staying
My
home
folks,
because
my
folks
folks are
here.
in their 80s, and when they say, "Could you?" Keep in mind, my mom's Jewish. She doesn't sound like this at all. But when I get her emails, I can only read her emails in the voice of my grandparents, who are extraordinarily Jewish. So this is how it sounds. We're going to Florida. I don't know if you're too busy to see your parents, but maybe you could get on a plane and come see us for a couple of minutes if there's not too much going on in your very busy life
Not at
that
all.
you have, because your mother took you to the library to buy you books and also took you to the bookstore and went into debt buying you new science fiction novels.
Not that I'm in debt.
I'm just saying, if you could come see us, it might be nice.
Your father is wondering.
Your father's on death's door. He would like to see you at least one more time before he has a coronary. You know how the Germans are, honey. You know the Germans, the hearts, they're not as strong as the Jews. Just come see your father one more time before he passes on. It would mean the world to him.
None of this is
My mom doesn't sound like that at all.
At all.
But that's That's what I hear every time she opens her mouth because of grandma and grandpa.
So Scott is going to Florida on a personal private trip in February. There are no public-facing things then. Then in June, Scott will be attending and probably on panels at StokerCon. StokerCon is a writers' convention. It's a horror writers' convention. It is very likely that we will have at least one outside the convention meet and greet at a restaurant or something in Stamford, Connecticut, and that's June 12th through June 15th, I think. You'll hear a lot more about that. If you are not already getting a newsletter, go to scottsigler.com and you'll see a pop-up for the newsletter.
scottsigler.com/newsletter. Why you're not signed up for this is beyond me. What are you, stupid? What are you, stupid? Go to scottsigler.com/newsletter, put in the information, get it.
So if you're not, do that. You'll hear about this a lot. So we will both be at StokerCon in June in Stamford, Connecticut. Also, Scott will assuredly be attending San Diego Comic-Con in July. That is world famous. It is very difficult to get tickets to. I often work, I staff that event, so I am not, we don't have a meet and greet. I don't think we will this year, but if enough of you are going to San Diego Comic-Con and email us, we might consider that.
Email us at info@mgset.com.
Yep. And then in August, we are considering DragonCon in Atlanta. We haven't purchased tickets yet. We haven't applied for Scott to be a guest yet, but that is potentially on the docket.
Okay.
As for books coming out in 2025.
Oh, shit, Becky. Look at her books.
It is an enormous list.
It is a girthitude. It is a girthon.
I'm not even talking about any anthologies that he's already submitted things for, but Combat Monsters just came out. You just
Combat? No, it's not out yet. It's not quite out yet. It's February. Combat Monsters
is the
in
only
which I have a
we'll
story called, which the translation is Black Dog. If you are familiar with the Black Dog, Svarthund. If you're familiar with the legend of the Black Dog in England, if you are familiar with Aleister Crowley, if you are familiar with World War II, if you are familiar with the effort by the English and the Scandinavians to prevent the Germans from getting the A-bomb, this story will slap you up and tickle you. It is sensational. It is called Svarthund, which means black dog, and that is in the Combat Monsters Anthology, which is out in February of 2025.
February 11th, 2025 is when it comes out. So that is, he's got Svarthund in that anthology. Also, Slaybook 3 will come out. Obviously, you're listening to it now. Slaybook 1 and Slaybook 2 will come out. Oh, well, Slaybook 1 is out. I'm so sorry. Slaybook 2 will come out in audio and ebook.
Audio, ebook, and
both Slaybook 1 and Slaybook 2 will come out as print-on-demand print books.
They will be available as paperbacks at Amazon.com. And we have worked very hard on the cover with Scott Pond, who is the Empty Set in-house designer. We have coordinated with Rob Otto, who is a co-creator and co-author on Slay. We're super excited that Slay Book 1 and Book 2 will be out in 2025, and possibly Slay Book 3 might be out in late 2025 or 2026. This series is going to tickle your privates.
Mm-hmm. We have also committed to our partners at Athon Books to commit to more crypt books in 2025. Their publishing queue is a little bit different than ours, and they are hoping for 2 crypt books in 2025. And we'll see if that happens.
The goal is we are very close to finishing the second draft of the Crypt Book 2's second draft. And because Crypt Book 2 was teetering on 140,000 to 160,000 words, which is massive, and I tried to cram 2 big battles into that one book, eventually it became obvious we need to separate this into 2 completely separate works, one big battle in Book 2, one big battle in Book 3. Which means we are in second draft status on both Book 2 and Book 3. So we are very confident that book 2, Slay Book 2, which we have not revealed the title yet, which we will, but you should go to scottsegler.com/newsletter and sign up, and you'll be the first to know. That will be out in 2025. And then Slay Book 3 might be out in 2025 or early 2026. Mm-hmm. And then we are moving on to what? Yes, let's go.
And for all of you who ask very frequently, GFL Book 7, 2025.
GFL Book 7 will be out in 2025. If I have to chain my narrow, pale ass to a chair and not see the sunlight, since ne'er don't know when, we're going to get GFL Book 7 out in 2025, which means 2025, we are committing to this slate. Crypt Book 2. Possibly Crypt Book 3, we're not sure. Death is Black, short story collection in ebook, audiobook, and paperback, 2025. Mm-hmm. Blood is Red, Bones Are White, paperbacks available.
Fire is Orange.
Fire is Orange. Short story collections available in 2025. GFL Book 7 in hardcover and in ebook and in audiobook in 2025. GFL Book 6, The Gangster, in paperback in 2025.
Do you know what the last two are?
I don't. I lost track.
We at Empty Set Entertainment are re-recording Alive and Alight.
That's correct,
so
yes.
So that the narrator matches and the pronunciations are correct. Steve the Iceberg Rickyberg and I are absolutely committed to this in 2025. That's a huge project for the two of us. And if you already own it on Audible, you can just re-download the updated files. You're not going to have to purchase it again. If you purchase it somewhere else and you have that problem, you can email us and we'll help you.
If you're listening to this and you're not familiar, Alive, Alight, and Alone are the three books in the Generations trilogy. A is re-recording book 1 and 2 because as a creator, I was very, very unhappy with how book 1 and 2 came out in audiobook. Very, very unhappy with the narrator ignoring my extensive instructions on pronunciation and characterization. That is going to be fixed. So now the Generations trilogy will be one unified set, and we're going to provide that audiobook in 2025 for books 1, 2, and 3, same narrator. And if you've already bought it, it's a free download. So that'll be great. We're so much work, babe.
It's so much work. We're very busy people. But we are super excited. Did you want to answer Sean's question and then we'll go?
Which was Sean's question?
There, right there. Where they are. Yep.
And then, is there anything else besides this? Have we covered all?
Those are all the things I have on my list.
So, Death is Black, Crypt Book 2, maybe Crypt Book 3, GFL Book 7, the re-recording the audiobooks of Generations Trilogy 1 and 2. And then comes the mystery. The mystery of Warpath, the book that we are legally handcuffed to tell you what it is about. We've been working with a movie company to produce an original IP that was the movie company's IP, and they wanted me to write a book for it. That has become one of the most Buffy the Vampire Slayer drama-filled events of my entire career. However, the book is done. If it goes well, it will be out from Titan Books in 2025. Can't tell you what Warpath is about, but I really hope it comes out because it will absolutely knock your socks off, particularly if you are an American who is into the continent of North American history. That's all I can say.
So that is us in 2025. Scott is absolutely going to be sitting right here at this desk.
I got no light bros.
Most of the year. But I do think as we kind of churn through these things, we'll get back on a more even keel. And I do think in 2026, it's likely that you'll see us at more conventions and things like that,
I think so,
as we did in the past. And if any of you are out there wondering, hey, when's the next Siglerfest, or can you do another Siglerfest? Right now, that answer is still no. However, anything is possible in the future. I don't think it's going to be a recurring event, but I do think we might agree to go to Vegas for a weekend or something like that sometime, but not in 2025. Don't plan for that in 2025.
In the chat room, Danny Lundy says, I'm going to have to add another bookcase. And this is a funny comment, but at the same time, we're talking about paperbacks of Death is Black. Wait. Blood is Red, Bones are White, Fire is Orange, Death is Black. 4 paperbacks, right? Paperback of GFL Book 6, The Gangster. There's 5 fucking paperbacks right there. Then Crypt Book 2, hardcover, paperback, audiobook, ebook. And then maybe the Crypt Book 3. And then also maybe fucking Warpath. Listen, I don't know how much.
And GFL 7.
Did I not count that?
You did.
Is that 10? How many is that? Okay. Bones are white. Wait. Sorry. Blood is red. Bones are white. Fire is orange. Death is black. Paperbacks.
Yeah.
And then maybe Warpath.
Paperback.
Gangster paperback.
Maybe Warpath.
Yep. And then Crypt Book 2 for fucking sure. Maybe Crypt Book 3. And then also GFL Book 7.
And Slay Books 1 and 2.
I already got those.
In paperback?
Oh, fuck. Slay Books 1 in paperback, and then pretend I'm holding, give me 10 fingers. Hold 10 fingers. And then Slay Book 2, audiobook, ebook, and also paperback, and then maybe Slay Book 3. We're talking fucking goddamn 12 fucking products out for you motherfuckers.
Hey!
Do you guys not think I fucking need to eat? Do you not think I need to fucking sleep? Jesus Christ!
Sir, this is an Arby's. You will not insult Scott Sigler fans. You will not call them motherfuckers.
You know what this is? This is okay. I'm gonna put out the paperback of Blood is Red, and then I want to put out the paperback of Blood of Bones are White, and then let's go the paperback of Fire is Orange, and then Jesus Christ. Okay, also ebook, audiobook, paperback of Death is Black. And then, how about Crypt Book 2? Jesus Christ, you blood-sucking minx. And then, maybe Jesus, Crypt Book 3. And then, GFL Book 7. Oh, my God, you're sucking out my soul.
I will also mention, we do not control the print schedule for the Crypt books.
No,
so
we
absolutely, there will be digital versions of the Crypt books in 2025. And we can't guarantee that there will be any print versions in 2025. But you can get it and read it and consume it and call it George.
Sean Dyer in the chat room says, you think you need to write this down. This feels like 1 + 1 + 2 + 1 scene at the end of Clue. Bro, I literally
think you need to write it down, not you think.
I am not sure if my ass is on fire and I don't know what's going on. All I know is
our whole plan. It's written down on index cards.
This lovely, gorgeous human being to my right, you guys listen to the podcast, we do this live stream live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern at facebook.com/Scott Sigler, twitch.tv/Scott Sigler, youtube.com/Scott Sigler. The person sitting on my right is controlling all of this. My job is to just push the buttons. I push the keys. I make the stuff. She handles it. So I don't know if we'll pull this off, but it is an ambitious, Machiavellian, Alexanderish schedule for 2025. And I really hope you guys enjoy it.
And that is it for this episode of Deep Cuts. Next episode, we're going to talk football and pick our NFL analogs for GFL players.
It's going to be spectacular. Make sure you listen to it. If you're a football fan at all, we're going to dial science fiction and real life football all together in the Galactic Football League schedule, and you'll enjoy it. And goodbye. And you know what? They all smell an awful lot like what?
Flowers, for
you
sure.
All smell like a boy.
Thank you guys so much for joining us.
That shit got nuts, dog.
It did. It got very big at the end. You're so busy. You're so busy.
I literally can't process the amount of shit I have to do in 2025 so that you and I can have a 2026 that is largely like, we're going to drink and play video games. And you know what? We never did watch all of Babylon 5. Let's watch it twice. Let's watch it twice in a row. Our 2020, you guys are fantastic. Love you.
Says you were like a ping pong in a fishbowl. It's not wrong. You got very crazy.
There's a lot going on. And last thing I'll say, a lot going on is the end stage of 6 years of us planning, plotting, trying to bring all of you motherfuckers all this. Yeah, we stopped recording. We're trying to bring all you fucking assholes all this great shit. And you've been like, hey, how about this?
They're not assholes.
Hey, how about this? Hey, how about GFL 7? Hey, how about Crypt Book 3? But Crypt Book 4? What about Earthcore 3?
They're not assholes.
I mean, to me,
well, I mean, maybe see.
Anyways, we're working very hard. We want to deliver all the shit we promised. We are not bullshit storytellers. We're going to deliver the real deal, whatever it takes. So while I bleed at this desk, I hope you're happy. You know what?
All I want is for you to be happy.
I don't mind bleeding at my desk, possibly dying, maybe not, don't know. Depends on my coitus. I hope you're happy with how things are going, but we're going to work very hard for you, and we love you. We love you very much.
And
we just want you to know. And go Lions. And now we're going to sign off.
See you next week, you guys. We love you.
Hold on. Wait.
I can't see that.
I'm literally doing the best I can. Hey. Hello. This camera shows off my face, but